In today's video I'm going to show you how to create a simple app for Android phones in Adobe Flash. And it's basically all about hyperlinks. Okay, we're going to make two different types of links in this app. The first one is a button that takes us to an external website. And in this example we'll be going to the Google website. You don't have to go to Google, you can choose whichever website you'd like. Okay, but that's what that first button is going to do. And in the second button there, when we click on this email button, it's going to open up our email accounts. It's going to allow us to send an email to a specified email address. So if somebody's trying to contact you, all they have to do is press that button and they'll be able to send off an email to your email account. Okay, so let's get started in Flash today. We'll make a new document up and it's going to be an Air for Android document. Don't worry about the dimensions just yet, we're going to change them in just a moment. And most phones these days do come in full HD, so full high definition quality, so I'm going to change the default sizes here that Flash has come up with. I'm going to change it to 1080 by 1920 pixels and press enter. Put my drop down box up here, which is my magnification box. I'll choose fit in window. You can see the stage here that we've got to work with. First thing I want to do is put in a background color. You can choose whatever color you'd like, but grab your rectangle tool to do this. Turn your stroke off. Pick any fill color and just dump it on your page. Okay, doesn't matter what size it is now because we're going to change it. So grab your black arrow and click on that rectangle you drew. And we're going to change the X and the Y values here to 0 and 0. And that pushes our rectangle up into the X and Y coordinates of 0. So right in the corner of our page. If we change the width and the height now to the exact same as our stage, so 1080 by 1920, we should have a rectangle that covers our entire document. Oops, I think that just went a little bit too big. 1920. Alright. So if you want to get a fancy background like I had in the example, you can go up to your color box while you've got your rectangle selected and change it to a linear or a radial gradient. See the sorts of effects you can get. I'm just going to stick with a linear gradient now. You can add more colors to this little timeline just by clicking below it, and you can bring more colors in. Okay, you don't have to do that, but it can look okay. If you think it looks a bit ugly, you can pick up these little padlock shapes here and drag them down, and that will remove them from the color timeline there. So I'll close that color panel now. That's got a kind of cool background in there. It looks a bit tacky, but I'll stick with it for now. I'm just going to write background on there. I'm also going to grab my text tool here, and make sure you choose Roboto font if you've got that on your computer. Roboto is a font that was made specifically for Android apps. Really simple sans serif font that's really easy to read, and it's got lots of different styles that go along with it. So there's lots of variations of that font. Okay, so you can just write in, I'm going to use white text for this, my links. And use your black arrow to just position that wherever you want it. If you want to get fancy, you can go down to your filters here as well. I'm going to add in a drop shadow. So that's a little bit of a shadow behind the text. I might even make the distance a bit bigger so it stands out a bit. There we go. So that's my heading. Got my background color in. That's my background finish. So I'll lock that into place. I'll make a new layer now, and I'm going to call it buttons. Okay. Inside buttons, we're going to make the two buttons. One that goes to the external website, one that opens up our email account. So you can either bring in buttons you've made previously or from a buttons library, or if you want to make your own, which I'm going to do in this case, grab your rectangle tool. I'm going to throw a black stroke around the outside of my buttons, and I'll just choose a bright color. I'll go a greenish. Actually, I'll go a darker green because I'm going to have light colored text on top of it. And I'm just going to draw a rectangle on the page here. Okay, that's a good size for a button. Grab my black arrow now, and I'm just going to select that button, clicking and dragging over it. And I'm going to convert that to a symbol by going to Modify and Convert to Symbol. I'm going to give it the name Link, and then I'm going to change the type to Button. And that will turn that rectangle into a button. As soon as you do turn it into a button, give it an instance name up the top of your properties box. I'm just going to call mine Link again to keep it simple. If you double click on this button, it's going to take us into isolation mode where we can just work on our button. You can see it's got a special timeline for buttons down here. I'm going to have a play around with that in just a moment. First of all though, we want to grab our text tool, Change the color to, let's say, white. I'm going to drop the size down to about 200. Click on my button there. I'm just going to write in Google. I'm going to see if that fits inside. A little bit too big still, so I might drop the size down to 150. Yeah, that fits a bit better. So just move that around and try and position that roughly in the center of your button there. Okay, so that's basically how our button's going to look when we first load our app up. That's called the up state of the button, when it's just sitting there and nobody's touching it and it's doing nothing. We've got a few other states that we can play with here, and the other state that I want you to play with on this button is the down state. So underneath the word down, click in the little box below it and press F6 on your keyboard to put a keyframe in. Now when we press on the button, we want it to change color. So as our finger pushes down on the button, click on that green behind the text and change it to another color. I'll just choose pink for this option. Okay, so in the up state, as our button's just sitting there doing nothing, it's going to be green. And when our user pushes down on that button with their finger, it will turn pink. Okay, so that's all I want to do to that button for now regarding its style. So I'll click the back button here and take us back. Okay, so there's our first button looking good. We'll grab the rectangle tool now and draw our second button in. Okay, I might make this one blue. And if you want to be fussy, you can try and make these the same size. You would have to play around with the width and height settings in the properties panel. I'm just going to guess for now and make them look somewhat similar. Okay, so that's my button there. Looking good. I'll grab my black arrow and select the second button now. I'll do the same as before. I'll go to modify and convert it to a symbol. This time I'm going to call it mail. Oops. Mail. And it's a button again. So click on OK. And we'll just give it the instance name mail. Okay, we need to give it an instance name because that's what we're going to be using in the code very shortly to make our buttons work. So they must have a name, an instance name, before we can actually put code on them. Okay, so now that that's converted to a symbol, we can double click on it to go into isolation mode. And we can grab our text tool again. Make sure you've got like white as your color if you're choosing white. And I'm going to write the word email in. I'm going to keep it the same size font as what I had in my previous button. I want them to look very similar so they look consistent with one another. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So that's the up state of the button. Remember, on the down state, press F6 to put a keyframe in. Click on the blue in the background and pick another color. So I'm going to pick like a reddish color this time. Okay, so my up state's blue. When I press down on the button, it will turn red. I'll press back now, and there's both buttons created. To make them look a little bit more like a button, you can highlight both of those buttons by clicking and dragging over them. Go into filters and add a bevel around them. That just chisels out the edges a little bit. And another filter you can add is a drop shadow. I'm not going to touch any of the settings there, I'll just leave them be. Okay, so we've got a bevel and we've got a drop shadow. And now as we look at the buttons, they just look a little bit more 3D, look a little bit more like buttons. Okay, so I think that's looking good. What I'm going to do is lock that layer. So I'm finished with the buttons now. And I'm going to add the last layer in now, which is called actions. This is where we put the coding onto our buttons. So it's our action script. To bring your action script panel up, go up to your window menu and click on actions, or just press F9 for the shortcut. Okay, in here we're going to put some code to make our buttons work. Okay, so let's start off straight away with the external link button. So when we click on the green button, we want it to take us to Google. Okay, so I'll stretch this back out. And be very careful when you write this. You may need to pause the video to make sure you get the spelling spot on and get your capital letters where I've got capital letters. Make sure you get the right punctuation. Because Flash is very fussy with their code, so you want to be spot on with how you write your action script. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is, whoops, stay out of caps lock, that's for sure. We're going to write link, that's the name of our button. And we're going to write .add event listener. Okay, so Flash is going to listen out for a particular event. And that event we want to occur is a mouse event. .click. So when we click on the button, for apps, a click event with the mouse can be used for when you press on the button with your finger. It's the same thing. Okay, so we'll use a mouse event for this one. So we'll do mouse event.click and then put a comma and write open URL, all in lowercase. We'll close the brackets off and put a semicolon. And then we're going to press enter a couple of times. Okay, so just looking back at that, listener, yep, everything seems to be spelt right, so copy that in. That's your first line of text. The next line of text is going to show us how to open up that URL. So it's going to take us to Google. So we write in, first of all, function. We're going to create a function. Open URL. And then we're going to put a bracket and write event, colon, mouse event. And then we're going to close the brackets, do a colon, and write void, and then open up a curly brace. Okay, so let's make this code work. We'll create a variable first of all called URL, do a colon, and write URL request. And then we're going to go and write equals. You might have just noticed that Flash added 2 lines of code at the top. That's okay, just let it do that. It knows what it's doing. Okay, so a variable URL colon URL request equals new URL request. And after that, we're going to put brackets, do some quotation marks, and write in the URL we want to open up. So in this case, I'm going to do Google. You don't have to do Google. You can write whatever website you want in there. Make sure you do it inside quotation marks, and you close the brackets when you're done. Put a semicolon at the end. Okay, so the last line of text just tells us to navigate to that website. So navigate to URL. We open up brackets, so we go to that URL we just mentioned up above, and we also want to open it up in a new page. So we write in the word underscore blank. Close the brackets off, semicolon, and that's our code to make our first button work. What I'm going to do is go back up here to line 3. Just press enter. I'm going to put 2 forward slashes in, and my text will turn grey. This is how you write a comment in your code. A comment isn't actually part of the code, it's just a little helpful tip that tells people what's going on in the code below. So I'm going to do those forward slashes, and I'm going to write, click the Google button to open up the Google link. Okay, I'll just put 2 slashes at the end there to close it off. So that piece of text there is not actually, it's not actually code. It's just a comment that tells us what is happening in the code. So that's our first one done. Let's go down below that now, and we'll do the mail link. Okay, it's called a mail to link to be exact. So I might put in a comment and say, click the email button to send an email. Okay, so now the code below here is going to tell us how to send an email. Okay, so the first thing you want to write in is mail. That's the name of the button that we came up with before. So it's mail.add event listener. Okay, so Flash is going to listen out for an event again. And it's going to be the same as before. It's going to be a mouse event dot click. So when we click on that email button, we're going to open up a function which we will call mail to. We want to mail to somebody. I'll do a semicolon there. Go down 2 lines, and now we can start to write in the code that's going to make our email work. So we'll do function mail to brackets event colon mouse event. We'll close the bracket, colon, void, open up a curly brace. Okay, you can see this code's very similar to the one above. You don't have to fully understand this either, by the way. As long as you get the code right and it does its job, you're laughing. Okay, so we'll create a variable now called email. We'll do a colon and write URL request equals new URL request brackets, and in quotation marks I want you to write mail to colon and then the email address you want to send the email to. So I might do my school email address actually. want you to do your school email address as well. There it is. We'll do some quotation marks there, close it off with some brackets and put a semicolon at the end. And the last line is navigate to URL brackets email comma quotation marks underscore blank. So it means it opens it up. It opens up the email account in a brand new window, so not inside the app. Close your brackets, put a semicolon, and you should be finished. I'm just going to check over that code now to make sure it's all good. So we've got the 2 bits of code that Flash added in for us. Just leave that up there. So the grey text is our comment. Link. Okay, so when we press the link button, we're going to open up this URL, which is google.com. And it's going to open up in a brand new page, so a blank page. That's good. Look at the next one. So when we press the mail link, yep, that's looking good. Okay, all seems well and good there. So I'm just going to close off my action script for now. And I think I'm done. So what I'm going to do is just press Control Enter. Actually, I'll save it first. I'm going to go to File, Save As. I'm going to go into my ITS folder and I'll make a new folder up called Links. And I'm going to call it Links and save it as a Flash document. That's the first step. Then I'm just going to press Control Enter. That's just going to publish it. Now, it's not going to fit on my screen because my resolution's well off. We'll just see if it comes up with no errors. As long as there's no errors, I'm going to be happy. Okay, so it does turn out massive. It's just because it's in full HD, but that's okay. It came up with no errors, so that's what I'm looking for, and I'm very happy with that. So now I'm ready to get my publish settings sorted out and ready to put on my phone. Okay, so I'm going to go across to my properties and click on Publish Settings. And I'm going to have the output file called Links. I'm going to have Flash here checked, but I'm going to uncheck the HTML wrapper. I don't want that checked. I just want to make sure that's being saved into my Links folder. It sure is, so I'll click Save there. And then I'm going to go up to my target here where it's got Air for Android and click on the player settings. I'll make sure my output file is called Links. The app name is Links. App ID is Links. It's version 1. It's in portrait format. You can make it full screen if you want. It should be anyway. That's all good. Go to Deployment. Remember, if you don't have a digital certificate created, you need one to publish apps for Android devices, so create one now if you haven't got one. If you've already made one, browse for that certificate and type your password in. Air runtime, I'm just going to embed the Air runtime with the application. If you had an icon for this app, you could put it in there now. I don't for this one, so I think I'm all good. I'll click on OK, and I'll click down on Publish here. Okay, so that will just take a moment to publish. So we'll just sit tight for a sec while that publishes. Okay, so our app's finally published. It did take a little while there, so we'll click on OK. Let's click OK on this. Now I'm going to go down to my Explorer folder here, and inside my links folder that I just created before, I've got a few files that have appeared. The one we're looking for is the APK file, so you see links.apk. I'm just going to right click on that and I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go across to my Galaxy S5 that's plugged into my computer. I'll open it up. I'll go to the documents and I'm going to right click and paste it onto my phone. Okay, so my Links app is now on my phone. So what I'm going to do is load up the camera and I'll show you how to get it off your phone. Okay, so here's my phone. I'm going to click on my apps over here, and I'm going to go to, if we can zoom in close enough here, My Files. Whoops, I've clicked the wrong button already. Okay, My Files. From here, I can go to the device storage and go to Documents, and I can see now at the top I've got my links.apk file. When I click on that, it's going to give me an option to install it, so I will install it. Shouldn't take too long. Okay, that's installed, so I can go down to Open. Okay, and that's opened the app on my phone. Let's give this a go. Let's see if we can go to Google by pressing that. Up comes my internet, and there's Google. Okay, so that works well. Let's press my back button to go back for a moment. And when I press my email, it should open up my email account. Just watch as well when I press this button. You'll notice the button changes color. That's the down state. When I push down on the button, it changes color. Let's see what pops up. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that too well on your screen. I'll try and get rid of the glare. But you can see it's... there we go. You can see it's opened up my email account now. And I can send an email to that email address I specified in the code. Okay, so if I press back and back, I can press down on the Google button, you'll see it changes color. Down on email and it changes color. Okay, quite a simple app, but that's working. I'm happy with how it works. That's how you create different links in Adobe Flash and throw them into your mobile apps. Okay, so save that up and you're all done.